Good evening, Fernwood. It is your thrifty throwback Neil, and it's time for us to sew up the threads of another episode of Mary Hartman, Mary Hartman. We are watching episode 267 today from April 12th, 1977. Yesterday had some twists, turns, shocks, and shudders, so let's take a look. After seeing her mysterious monster, Loretta barricaded herself into the Hager home. She called Mary, who was more concerned with the problems that she had been having with Tom than listening to Loretta. Charlie came in through the window after his GGG patrol to find a terrified Loretta and thinks that maybe she saw a bear. So he pulls out a bear trap. Loretta is very sure that she didn't see a bear though, and perhaps thinks that maybe the singing that she's doing is attracting this beast. Whatever it is, the Hagers are going to deal with it. Howie Freeze returned to Fernwood to visit Mary. He seemed to be on the verge of making a big change in his life. Mary gets a phone call from Tom because she didn't pack his thermos, and it seemed like Tom was inordinately angry. Tom also asked who was there. She said she was there with Howie, leaving out that Dewey was also in the room, probably because Tom asked her to end the friendship between them. Mary doesn't explain that, but does apologize for leaving Dewey out. Howie leaves an envelope with money for Kathy to pay for bills, and then Mary gives Howie a goodbye kiss on the cheek. Mary still feels bad for leaving Dewey out of the conversation with Tom, and Dewey says that he isn't bothered by it, but it's clear that he's disappointed. And after Dewey leaves, Mary is disappointed in herself. Next door at the Shumways, George is mocking Grandpa Larkin and Barbie for playing pickup sticks with the hard pretzels. They give him a few digs for not admitting that he misses Martha, but he insists to Kathy and the rest of them that he's not bothered by her absence, and pulls out a phone book with some names in it and calls a certain lady friend. And the call is answered by the woman's husband, and not only that, the woman recently passed away, and the others in the room have a giggle at that. Howie then ends up at the Capri Lounge where Martha tries to comfort him, while outside the bigoted Tex disguises himself using blackface. Howie seems to feel guilt for having taken the bribe. Howie feels down on himself, so Martha brings up the thief who stole the money from the Dimes for the Disease telethon, not knowing that Howie was the person who took that money in bribe form. And while the two are talking, Tex comes in using every stereotype he can. And for once, while Martha is trying to emotionally support someone, she says something that puts a little steam in their engine, and Howie finds some resolve to go up against the GGG, and at that moment, Martha attempts to steal Howie's sunglasses, but has a change of heart, gives the glasses back to him, and declares herself cured from kleptomania. With Howie's newfound resolve, he gets back on the phone to the radio station saying that he knows everything about the GGG right in the presence of the disguised Tex, who pulls him around, and while Martha is dancing and celebrating, strangles Howie to death. Tex leaves as discreetly as he can, and then Martha comes over and sees Howie slumped on the piano thinking that he's playing it, but discovers that she's talking to a corpse. And everyone, that was not what I was expecting yesterday, so I have no idea what is in store for us today. Let's just cross this threshold.
Mary Hartman! Mary Hartman!
Oh, all packed?
Uh-huh. You know, Wanda, I'm still awful shook up about that night in jail. Couldn't I stay till tomorrow?
No, dear, I'm afraid you've already overstayed your welcome.
How about if I stayed and just worked as the maid? I'd work for free.
No. Oh, Lila, here, let me get it. Take it easy there. Hey, Chief, how you doing there, Bart? Come on in.
How are you?
How are you? Good.
Good to see you.
She's still in town?
Oh, no,
Yeah.
well, she was just leaving.
Uh-huh. Well, she better, because my orders as police chief just don't count for nothing, you know.
I know.
Hey, come on in and sit down.
Yeah, what's up anyway?
Well, as they say, I got some good news and I got some bad.
Yeah?
Well, we'll start off with the good.
Yeah?
See, I have recovered all that stolen telethon money.
Oh.
From the well, that's great news.
Yeah, I guess you just made the right choice when you appointed me chief of police now, didn't you?
Well, I don't think there was ever any question about that.
Well, now I just got to get on to the bad news.
Yeah?
You know that squirt reporter that's been running around here investigating some kind of underground group?
What, you mean a freeze boy? Howard? Yeah, he's on his way over here.
He's dead.
What happened?
Well, I was out making my rounds as usual, just trying to find crime wherever the hell I could, you know. When all of a sudden I seen this black guy running out of the Capri Lounge with a suitcase.
Yeah?
Well, I hollered for him to stop, you see. And I said, stop!
That should have done it.
Didn't do no good at all. Just dropped the suitcase, started running down the street like a bat out of hell.
Are you sure he was black?
Well, hell yes. Had this big fuzzy afro,
Yeah.
carrying this suitcase all clutched up like this, running down the street out of the Capri Lounge like that? Come on. Besides, he was dark.
Uh-huh. Let me ask you one thing. You keep bringing up this term criminal. How are you sure he was a criminal? What makes you think he was a criminal?
All right. Let me ask you. Would you call a black man who strangles a white man a criminal?
He strangled somebody here in Fernwood?
Yes. I'm telling you, I went on into the Capri to do my investigating as usual. And there was Howie Freeze all slumped over the piano, just strangled up something fierce.
God, isn't that disgusting?
Well, I just really couldn't get all that choked up over it my own self. I mean, seeing as how I found him and her in that fancy Jap bathtub together.
Now, I've told you.
You shut up! Now you get your tail out of town, girl, before I slap it in a rubber room.
All right. I'm leaving. Bye, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. Well, Lila, I really don't know what to say here. But on behalf of Wanda and myself, I'd like to say that I'm sure you're going to make some jerk real happy one of these days once you just mend them filthy ways of yours.
Well, Mr. Mayor, it seems that I remember that I made you pretty happy without mending my ways. Bye.
Goodbye, Lila. I'll always remember you.
You should. I gave you much more than you're ever going to get from this guy.
Well, buddies, I think it's over.
Well, it certainly made for some pretty strange bedfellows.
It did. It did.
I'll drink to that.
Literal.
Oh, Merle, could you give me a receipt for this money here?
Oh,
and
sure.
my reward, I'll just be on my way then.
Your award?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think anybody could deny you deserve it this time, big fella. That's incredible. That's really incredible.
Well, all I know is that this thing, whatever it was like 8 feet tall at least, and it definitely was not a man.
Oh, God. I didn't check out the neighborhood before I moved in.
I still say it was a bear.
There are no bears in Fernwood. It was the crazed, mad black bomber that killed Howie Freeze.
How? That don't sound right to me. What would a mad bomber want with Loretta? I mean...
Well, it's simple. Loretta is the official songstress for the GGG, and the Mad Black Bomber is an enemy of the GGG. So it all just adds up.
Oh, thanks.
Hello.
Hi, Mary.
Anybody home?
Hi. Come on in.
Come on in. I want you to meet, this is Dr. J. Stanley Maddock. These are the Haggers, Loretta and Charlie, and this is Mr. Vernon Bales. He's head of the auto plant. Now, Dr. Maddock may not look like much, but he happens to be an expert on unusual animals.
What makes him an expert?
I have a PhD in anthropology. Surely you're familiar with my work. Have you never visited my two-headed garter snake exhibit just outside of town?
Do you know the one with the big sign? The most incredible thing, thrill of a lifetime. He is an expert, Charlie.
I understand you have made a cast of the creature's footprint, Mr. Haggard.
Yeah, right. It's a whopper.
Yeah.
I got it right here. Now, just take a look at that one, Doctor.
Looky there, huh? Oh, boy.
You have never in your life laid your eyes on anything like that, I'll bet.
As a matter of fact, I have.
You see, I knew it. Probably no larger than a Weimaraner. Is that right?
Mr. Haggard, as a man who's been around, and then some, I must tell you this is definitely the footprint of a Sasquatch.
Say again?
A Sasquatch. That's the Indian name for it. In American, Bigfoot.
You mean Bigfoot the Beast?
Is that here in Fernwood? What is that? Sasquatch?
A Sasquatch?
Sounds like soul food.
Bigfoot is a large ape-like creature, actually more human than ape. There have been Bigfoot sightings in the Northwest, Washington, Oregon, Northern California, but never this far east.
So this actually is more important for Fernwood than the two-headed garter snake.
But what would it be doing in Ohio?
Perhaps retiring to a little dairy farm. Mrs. Haggard, this is a major discovery. You must be very careful not to frighten it away.
Oh, well, let me tell you, there ain't gonna be no danger of that because, I mean, whenever I see anything, you know, so fierce, huge, and awful like that, I'm usually so frightened I couldn't do any frightening of my own, you know.
Look, I know this isn't my house, but I just have the feeling that at this very moment, Loretta would be serving coffee if she weren't so thunderstruck. So, anybody?
Thank you, Mary.
Mrs. Haggard, I'm asking you, for the sake of science, to put aside the thought of your body being ripped to shreds and help us to observe this creature at close range. Obviously, something about you is attracting this unusual creature.
Well, critter doesn't have to be too unusual to find Loretta attractive, if you take my meaning.
Oh, Charlie, hon.
The beast is usually attracted by sounds of some kind.
She sings. Does Baby Boy ring a bell?
We've been talking
I
about
told
that
you,
same
Charlie.
thing.
I
We
told you that.
weren't we saying the other day
Yeah, we were.
that it was probably the sound of your
saying-
singing that attracted that old bear, huh?
The monster.
Bigfoot.
It's Sasquatch.
Whatever.
Sasquatch.
For goodness sake, Mrs. Haggard, keep on singing.
Oh, I will.
For the sake of science, for the sake of Fernwood, for the sake of any financial gain there may be involved, keep singing.
My bear trap! I caught him! I caught me a Bigfoot! Hang on! Just stand back! Stand back!
Be careful.
Everybody, ready? Ain't that something? Everybody else managed to walk right by that trap.
Y'all think it'd be completely out of the question to get somebody to help me out of this trap? If I had a boot on, it'd take my whole damn leg off.
Well, thank God it wasn't Bigfoot. So this, Bigfoot, is he all he's cracked up to be? You can tell me. Tom? I'm upstairs. Do you think that two complete strangers can have a totally satisfying sexual experience?
Well, I think if it was totally satisfying, then they wouldn't be complete strangers anymore.
I'm so embarrassed. I honestly thought, I mean, I know you know.
Yeah.
You know I thought you were Tom. I mean, I didn't. I'm sorry.
Yeah. You know, sometimes I wish I was Tom.
I don't believe it.
Well, listen, Mary, we're friends, right?
Well, I mean, I know we're friends, but it's just that real friendships can deteriorate in bedrooms.
Well, I know, but I heard that you paid Wanda a little visit and you returned them toys that I gave you. Why'd you do that?
I don't play anymore. I've outgrown that. I tore up the little Mary puppet, Merle.
Well, but there's something between us, Mary.
No, no. There's something between little Merle and little Mary. But little Mary has moved away.
Well, as one adult to another, I wanted to ask you to come to work for me.
You want me to work for you?
Would you? Please? Kind of be my girl Friday?
It won't work, Merle. What would happen if you started rubbing my back at City Hall?
No, I don't want you to say no now. I just want you to think about it, okay?
Wouldn't it be a little easier for me to think about it if you weren't touching me? Tom? Heather?
Yeah?
Come on upstairs, sweetheart.
Why?
Hey, Heather, how you doing?
What do you want?
Did you finish all your homework, sweetie?
Yeah. What's he doing here?
I just came by over here to see your mom for a second, Heather. What are you doing up this late? It's past your bedtime, isn't it?
No. Heather's a big girl now. She can stay up as late as she wants.
Oh.
Yeah.
Since when? You're such a liar.
Oh. Heather, while you're up, would you brush my hair? You see, we're practically like sisters. We always brush each other's hair.
Yeah. Well, we never brush each other's hair.
I forgot.
Well, you're a very sweet girl, Heather. And you have a wonderful mom. Well, I'm going to say goodnight to you ladies. For now.
Thanks for stopping by.
Well, good night, Mary. Sorry if I interrupted anything.
Heather, you didn't interrupt anything. This household is not that sophisticated. Is that all you have to say to your mother?
Merle Jeter is a creep.
Good night, sweetheart.
Well, where the hell is Hartman? He's late. This is an important meeting. Oh.
This used to be such a nice town, you know that? Now, I don't know, it's hard to picture what's going on.
Yeah, I know what you mean. All them robberies and that mad bomber. And not to mention poor old Howie Freeze getting strangled to death up there on the stage of the Capri Lounge.
You know something? There's something in this town that's driving everybody crazy. Now, I got a daughter that's maybe half nympho. I got a wife that's a full klepto. Living in a sicko apartment. I'm living alone with two Geritol's that play pickup sticks with pretzels.
Vernon, why are we fooling around with all this mumbo-jumbo? Man, all these guys know that Dewey did it. Why don't we just go over there and string him up?
Oh, shut up, Texas. We've got to handle this Dewey thing right. Now, his demise has got to be an example to all the minority groups in Fernwood. That's why we have to get these jokers to join up as deputy executors.
Well, that's fine with me. Just let me know when, man.
Oh, put that thing away, you...
Hi, guys.
Well, it's about time.
Hartman, you're late.
Yeah, well, I got a lot of things on my mind, let me tell you.
Hey, Tom, are you carrying that gun around with you all the time?
Yeah, after the way Howie got knocked off, nobody's safe. Hey, I'm telling you, this town's in trouble.
Yeah, Tom is right. Well, there's a crazed black killer running loose in Fernwood. Now, we've got to do something about this right now. We've got wives and children to protect.
Now, what makes you so sure that this guy is black?
Oh, come on, Charlie. The writing's on the wall. Afro comb, Martingale albums. He eats watermelon chicken. Black man killed Howie Freeze, right, Tex?
That's for sure.
Oh.
Yeah. There's only one black guy that comes to mind right offhand.
Dewey. Dewey did it. Did he do it?
Indeed, he done it.
Well, what do you think, Tom?
Me? Well, I think Dewey's a nice old guy. I mean, he's a gentle guy, and I just can't see him, hooked up as the mad bomber.
Well, but it's always the gentle old guys who are the most subversive,
Tom, you have got to think of your wife and daughter.
Yeah, and they just happen to be my daughter and granddaughter.
Hell, don't you think I think about that, George? I think about that. Hell, I've been on GGG patrol every night this week, haven't I? Huh? Believe me, I'm carrying my weight in this thing. I am. I know what the hell's going on around here. I am. I know exactly what's going on. And believe me, if I ever catch the guy who strangled my sister-in-law's boyfriend and tried to kill Mary in that explosion, hey, pal, watch out.
Oh.
I'll make that guy wish he'd never been born.
Well, I think we can adjourn this meeting. We all seem to be in agreement. Let's keep up the patrols, though. Tom, you and George take the night patrol, and you and Mac take the Dewey watch.
Right.
See you, Tom.
Texas, I think we're finally getting there.
Yeah. Hey, Vernon, I got a present for you, man.
Oh, my God, another bomb.
No, this here's Howie's research material.
Well, that's worse than a bomb. It's dynamite. It could blow up the whole GGG. It's worse than the Nixon tapes. Now, you get rid of it. That's an order.
Treat me like some old rag, ordering me around all the time. Can't never do nothing right. Always clean up after everything. Jesus.
Things are getting labyrinthine. And I'm okay with that. We started today with Lila moving out of the Jeter home. And I recall, I didn't mention it the other day when Wanda was first humming this tune, but I know just enough German to kind of pick out the first line, and I believe that what she sang was something to the effect of, "I will mess with your head." I don't know that song, so I'm kind of curious. I would think that maybe Greta Garbo must have sung it or something. Just it had that kind of feel to it. But it's not familiar to me, so if you know, please tell me. However, Lila is still begging for some kind of stability in her life. She doesn't want to be run out of town. And then Tex comes over pretty much after murdering Howie, and other than the deaths of the first episode of the series ever, there really hasn't been a specific intended murder in this show. Like, all of the deaths have been accidental. Certainly all of the on-screen deaths have been accidental. Until Howie's murder just the other day, or yesterday. Tex has no sense of remorse about it. He is completely evil. Vernon and Tex are the evil characters of this show. I don't think of Merle as evil as much as, well, we'll talk about Merle later, but Tex has no remorse, and he sets down the suitcase full of money that came from Howie and puts it right down next to Lila's suitcase and says, "Get out of town," basically, and she does. She picks up the suitcase and leaves. They find a decent-sized bra inside the suitcase that they have left over. And then I mentioned that Vernon was evil. He's with the Haggers. They are on the trail of whatever beast is outside, and Vernon goes out of his way to insert the Mad Bomber into this narrative where it has no place. Because Loretta definitely saw a large beast and Charlie thinks it's a bear, we know that Vernon's main tool is disinformation. Mary brings over an expert who recognizes the plaster of Paris footprint and declares it a Sasquatch, which is the other word associated with Bigfoot. And then the expert encourages Loretta to keep singing because it will be good for his profit margin and also science. Not so good, though, for Mac's ankle, which gets caught in a bear trap, and that is something. Then we cut to a bedroom scene with Mary, and I had thought maybe it would be an ugly Tom-Mary conversation, which I feel like has been bubbling. But it turns out to be Merle, who is troubling in his own way, because Mary has returned the toys, right? Like, I feel like it might be a couple months ago that he started giving these toys to Mary, and now she has finally returned them. There were a lot of different storylines going on, so these toys, it was certainly months ago that this began. After Mary tried to return the toys, after Tom tried to return the toys, Merle is back, trying to establish some kind of connection between him and Mary. Though there was that initial kiss, which is easily forgotten, but because it just happened once, it was unclear to me what Merle was trying to do with the toys. It seemed to me that Merle was trying to engage his inner child with Mary's inner child. And in that case, and with that plan of attack, it didn't necessarily seem quite so sexual. I do believe that Merle is sexually attracted to Mary, but there's a different kind of attraction at play. While I see that Mary is not having any kind of further relationship with Merle, she doesn't want it, it does make me sad that she says she doesn't play anymore. And another person is at the door, and Mary calls Heather up, and we know that Mary and Heather don't really feel love for each other. I mean, Mary sometimes feels something close to hate for Heather. So these feelings are not good. But she only calls Heather up to put some kind of wedge between her and Merle. Heather does not pick up on the fact that Mary really wants her there for some kind of defense. I'm not sure what to expect between Merle and Mary. Merle is crossing some lines here. They're subtle lines, but they're very clear lines, right? He hasn't tried to assault her, but this is definitely a line being crossed. And Heather ends the scene saying the thing that I feel, right? Like, I don't feel like Merle is a villain. I feel like he's a fairly dimensional human being that, I mean, sure, there are villains that are human, but in this show, I think real villains would be people like Tex and Vernon, who are specifically looking to violate a population and are willing to murder people intentionally. That to me is a villain. Like, I think strangely even young Davy Jessup in the first story arc of this series is less a villain than Vernon and Tex. So then, speaking of Vernon and Tex, we have a GGG meeting, and there are a few layers to this, right? Because Vernon and Tex are stoking the bigotry in the group and have continually suggested that there is a black person responsible for this, that all of the clues that they too have planted. They're getting everyone on board with this, to the extent that Tex pulls out a noose and he's trying to get them to do some lynching. And maybe the weird, potentially bright spot in this scene, other than that gag about Dewey did it, did he do it? Well, I need to listen to that bit again, but it did make me snicker. But the potentially bright spot in this scene was Tom coming in with his pistol. I don't know if that's bright spot for me, but Tom has pledged to get the person who did the bomb and murdered Dewey. And we can see on Tex's face a little bit of fear, because he knows he's the person who did that. And I wonder if any kind of discovery is going to be made. Now, at the end of the scene, Tex has thrown away all of the research. I mean, he just threw it in the garbage can, which means that you can find it. We've talked about how trash in Fernwood is easily found, but also in the real world. You know, what was the name of that trash man from my favorite clip show episode ever? Luther. Dewey is the guy who finds the diary. I'm not sure if he will find the glorious guardians of good research that Howie left behind. I hope that he does, because Dewey may be the only person fighting against the GGG. Mary might join that battle, and if Tom sees the light, he might join the battle too. I can only hope, because really at this point there are no real opponents to the GGG. So I'm feeling some tension right now. Thank you so much for watching with me. Thank you for leaving your feelings, thoughts, and impressions down in the comments. Thank you for sewing up these threads, and we will see you tomorrow night in Fernwood.